best thing that will help everybody in this country, any candidates for anything, anybody in need of universal credit, is a universal credit that really works well. It has had problems in the past. Most of those problems have now been fixed. But I'm making announcements today to hopefully build confidence in universal credit. It is a force for good. The vast majority of people who are on the receiving end of it or who go into universal credit acknowledge that it is a huge help, and most importantly of all, it is a big change from the legacy benefits that were so flawed.
But you need to do some really big changes. For example, you need to reverse the cuts to the work allowance imposed by George Osborne. That's the amount you can earn before your sort of benefits start to be hit. You need to be looking at that, don't you?
Well, that has already been looked at, and I give credit to the former Secretary of State who managed to get £4.5 billion in the last budget, a lot of which has gone into exactly that, so that the taper rate, where people going back into work lose their benefits, has reduced even further. And that actually is the biggest change of universal credit from the previous system, where it was hardly worth going back into work. You had to pay a tax rate of 90% effectively because you were losing your benefits. We've reduced that right down to 63%.
But the taper rate, that's that key thing, yes, in which you lose out when, yes, you work the further hours.
Of course.
I mean, that was really quite a high rate, 65%. I think it's now 63%.
That's right.
It needs to go down to 60%,
Listen,
doesn't it?
Of course I'd like to see it go down further. I would like every incentive we can find to make sure that people going back into work realise that it's the best thing for them and that they don't get a huge 90% tax rate. I have to manage that with the needs of the taxpayer, the demands of the Chancellor, the reality of how far we can go in terms of spending with universal credit, but that's always going to be at the top of my mind.
The big problem with universal credit is the ideal, as outlined, dreamt up by Ian Duncan Smith, to encourage people to work. But he feels very strongly, doesn't it, that it was trashed by those cuts imposed by George Osborne.
Well, I've had very good discussions with Ian, and you're right, it was his original vision to try and reform our welfare system so that it really acts in families' interests in terms of getting them back into work. And a lot of that money has been put back in, but also, Nick, this is a huge, ambitious project.
So look, we all know that Philip Hammond has a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a Scrooge.
He's a Chancellor.
But do you think he's opening up? I mean, you're talking about how you hope the benefits freeze will come to an end.
I hope so, and I think it is very much a core Conservative value to make sure that we do ensure that everybody who needs it gets the help they need and that we help people into work. That has to be right. It has to reach the whole of the country, and I hope he'll have those robust discussions with me.
Now, your good friend Jeremy Hunt, he was on the radio this morning, and he was saying that there's a danger there could be no Brexit at all. That must have been music to your ears.
No, I am committed to making sure that we do deliver on the referendum result, and I believe the withdrawal agreement is the best way to do that, protecting jobs and the economy, and, as the Prime Minister has said, the only deal on the table. But where Jeremy and the Prime Minister are right is that if this deal doesn't get through, anything could happen. And MPs are all holding on to their cherished view of what they think perfection looks like, either through a different way of leaving the European Union or through not leaving it. And I think both those people are making a mistake. We need to get a compromise. The withdrawal agreement is that compromise, so I still hope it will get through.
Jeremy Hunt was saying this morning there's a danger of Brexit paralysis if this vote doesn't go through, and he blames the Speaker for intervening and ensuring essentially that the government can't run down the clock on Brexit. You must be delighted with what the Speaker's doing.
No, but I'm less inclined to blame the Speaker. I think that what we're seeing is the House asserting itself in the face of its concerns about no deal. And I'm not really surprised about that. A majority of MPs are likely to come forward and say they want to stop no deal. I understand that. The real difficulty, and this is where Jeremy is absolutely right, is that there doesn't seem to be a coalescence around an alternative. The only deal we have is the withdrawal agreement. There is no other potential majority in Parliament apart from stopping no deal. And given that we now have Article 50 ticking against us, it's another reason to reconsider people voting against the withdrawal agreement. This is the deal we've got. Anything else could lead to any sort of outcome afterwards.
Now, you're saying that if the vote goes down, and you hope it will pass, then anything is possible. But presumably one thing you want to make sure that absolutely does not happen is no deal.
No deal I am very much against. I think it would be bad for the country, bad for the economy, and I'm sitting here in a job centre, and one of the reasons why the success of this sort of job centre and universal credit is taking place at the moment is because there are plenty of jobs to go to. And the more that is the case, the better for everybody involved. I think that no deal would not be good for the economy. On the other hand, I think it's right to prepare for it in the same way that if you get into a car, you want to have a seatbelt on just in case. But our central mission as a government must be to get a deal with the EU and to deliver on that.
Now, we know that Michael Gove likes Scarlett Johansson and you like Piers Brosnan. They are the ideal dates that are out of your reach in the way that an ideal Brexit is out of your reach. But unlike Michael Gove, you have the ability to be a star of the screen. So tell me, this cameo role that you're going to have in The Bodyguard, which particular scenes from the first episode, possibly scenes involving the Home Secretary, would you like to reprise?
Well, listen, as we say in the business, I can neither confirm nor deny that there's going to be a second series. But if there is, the role I'd like to play is as a bodyguard this time.
Amber Rudd, thank you very much.
Thank you.